Starry, starry night.
Hey guys, Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer. We talk about all things music. And today, we've got a much heavier video on our hands than what I normally do. My mom passed away on January 27th, 2025. She was an absolutely amazing mom who was very supportive of both my YouTube channel and my mental health, among other things. And she will definitely be missed. And another thing she did for me was she introduced me to a ton of awesome music. So, let's talk about this awesome music. This is 10 bands/artists my mom introduced me to. These bands and artists will be in chronological order. So, naturally, we're going to start with some classical music. When I was about 18, I decided to explore two genres I hadn't really delved into before. Those being electronic, which I kinda had to delve into myself, because my parents know nothing about that stuff, and classical, which, when I told my parents I wanted to get into classical, my dad suggested Beethoven, and my mom suggested both Chopin and the man we're talking about today, Tchaikovsky. Now, my mom got into Tchaikovsky when she was quite young, after she took some antidepressants. A different type of antidepressant that she took later on got her into Metallica, by the way. And when she told me to check out Tchaikovsky, I checked out 1812 Overture, Swan Lake, Nutcracker Suite, and oh my god, I loved them all. That said, classical is still far from my favorite genre, but at least now I can kind of appreciate it. Like, a lot of it's actually good. And Tchaikovsky is one of my favorites of the genre.
And so move it on over, move it on over, move it on over, move it on over.
Now for some old school country. I've been a fan of Hank Williams for as long as I can remember. My mom had like a greatest hits of his, I think, and she used to play it when I was a kid, and my favorite song from him at the time was Move It On Over, which I really liked because I thought it was Move the Dog Over. And I love dogs, among other animals at the time, so naturally it was my favorite song from Hank Williams. My brother was actually a fan of him at an even younger age than I was. My mom used to play that greatest hits thing from Hank Williams for him and helped him fall asleep. So yeah, my brother has loved Hank Williams since literally babyhood. And even now, I still think he's a great country artist. I wonder if my brother would feel the same. He's severely autistic. I can't ask him, because he can't talk. But anyway, let's move on.
I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher.
The story of how I got into this guy is a little bit less clear than the stories of how I got into Tchaikovsky and Hank Williams. I just remember that one day my mom decided to show me a greatest hits compilation from Johnny Cash. I don't remember why. I don't even really remember how old I was. I just remember that I was, I think I was between the ages of 6 and 8, if I had to guess. But I absolutely fell in love with the song Ring of Fire, which was the first song I heard from him. My mind was absolutely blown by that song. What's really amazing about this entry is that everyone in my family likes this guy. My mom may have introduced me to Johnny Cash, but my dad, aunt, uncle, and grandma are all fans as well. In fact, I brought that up to my mom once, and she said that even her first husband, James, who I've never met and probably never will, even he liked Johnny Cash. So, yeah, I kind of feel like you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't like Johnny Cash, at least a little bit. And, yeah, he's just a great artist. Anyway, that's enough country music. Let's move on to my mom's actual favorite genre, rock music.
Nobody gonna take my car, I'm gonna race into the ground. Nobody gonna beat my car, it's gonna break the speeding sound.
This one I discovered because of both of my parents, technically. I don't remember how old I was for this one either. I just remember one day, me and my parents were listening to music on YouTube, and they decided to introduce me to Deep Purple's song, Highway Star. This song is one I loved instantly, but then I didn't hear it for years after that. But then once I got into metal a little bit more, I checked it out again, and I loved it even more than I had the first time. Despite that, I didn't check out any more Deep Purple for a while. I only checked out more from them when I found out that my fellow music critic Spectrum Pulse listed the album Machine Head from these guys as a 10 out of 10 album. I checked the album out and, oh my god, it was great. Like one time I played this album in the car with my parents, and it lasted the entire trip. We got home right as the last song ended. So yeah, apparently Machine Head by Deep Purple is the perfect album to play when you're driving from where I live to the town of Lockhart. But while we're on the subject of early heavy metal,
Breaking the law, 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 breaking the law.
I don't exactly remember when I found out about these guys either. I'd like to say it was when my mom was combing my hair and she decided to put on British Steel, the album, in the background. But I do have vague memories of her singing Breaking the Law before that. And yeah, I've always liked these guys from the moment I heard them. Anyway, if you couldn't tell by this entry and the last one, my mom was an old school metalhead. She didn't get as into the underground stuff like Exodus and whatnot, but she knew all the big names like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Metallica, etc. And she also was really into hair metal. I know some metalheads would call her a poser for that, but if you do that, I'm gonna block your comment, or should I say delete your comment. Yeah. While I discovered most of the bands I just listed in other ways, Judas Priest is one I discovered because of her. I'm glad I did too, because I still absolutely love them.
I'm on the highway to hell. On the highway to hell.
Remember when I said that my brother loved Hank Williams from day one, pretty much? Well, that's how I was with AC/DC. When I was a baby, my mom had this greatest hits compilation from AC/DC, and she would play it for me when I was a kid to help me sleep, and yeah, it actually worked. In other words, AC/DC was my first ever favorite band. My mom would later go on to play that same greatest hits for me when I was old enough to actually remember it, and turns out I still loved it, and as an adult, I still love it. Now, for something a bit more surprising... Remember when I said I got into Judas Priest while my mom was combing my hair? Well, the same can be said for the Sex Pistols. She put on a Sex Pistols song once while combing my hair, and oh my god, I thought it was pretty cool, though it took me a while to get used to his voice. But anyway, I wouldn't really get into the Sex Pistols until high school when I discovered punk music. My mom was always more of a metalhead than a punk, but she did like a few of the big names like Black Flag, The Clash, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones. Yeah, my mom was pretty hardcore. And speaking of edgy stuff...
I'm going off the rails on a crazy train.
Ozzy is another artist I discovered at an early age. I know that when I was a baby, I used to get really excited whenever War Pigs by Black Sabbath came on the radio. That said, I mostly discovered Black Sabbath on my own. Ozzy Osbourne's solo career, on the other hand, I discovered thanks to my mom playing Crazy Train for me at some point. Funny story. One time, my very Christian teacher at the discipline campus played Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne in class. This surprised me because I always thought she was more of an Amy Grant person because, come on. And my mom was really surprised because back in her day, that kind of woman would definitely not have been listening to metal. My mom went to an Amy Grant concert once and hated it, by the way. She was raised super religious, though she ended up becoming a Wiccan. Now, the next band I only know one song from, but it's one of my mom's favorite songs, so I figured why not. Yup, Take On Me. I discovered that this was one of my mom's favorite songs back in 2013 when we were watching Todd in the Shadows together, and he was reviewing the song Feel This Moment by Pitbull and Christina Aguilera, and when Todd pointed out the sample, my mom was like, "Oh, that's one of my favorite songs." Then, years later, we heard it in a grocery store, and my mom recognized the song and knew she enjoyed it, but couldn't name the band or the song. I looked it up later, and wow. The synthesizers on this song are absolutely insane. I really need to check out more from these guys because, come on, this song is incredible. And I have heard from other music critics that they're more than just their one hit.
Past midnight. This is on my 9mm go back.
This last one is kind of an odd one because my mom really was never really a fan of rap, but Ice-T was always an exception for her. Of course she liked his metal stuff, but she even liked his rap stuff, which was kind of strange to me. She showed me some of his stuff when I started getting into Eminem. And oddly enough, even my dad, who hates rap even more than my mom did, likes Ice-T. Like, my dad isn't even a fan of Lupe Fiasco or some of the others that a lot of white people get into. My mom at least got into Lupe Fiasco, Macklemore, and Eminem when I showed them to her. But yeah. But anyway, when my parents showed me Ice-T's music at the time, I didn't really enjoy it. But I did get into it later when I heard the song Midnight, which is a great song. It's like a dark, creepy sort of rap song, which I always enjoy those. Also, my parents are both fans of Law and Order Special Victims Unit, even though some would call Ice-T a sellout for being on that show, and I can kind of see why. I will say he does a good job on that show, even though it is weird to see the guy who made Cop Killer playing a cop. Anyway, that's my list. Rest in peace, Mom. You were an amazing human being who taught me to appreciate nature and art, as well as most of my sense of right and wrong. It feels weird to ask you guys to subscribe, but you can if you want to. I'm Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer, and I'm out.
Flaming flowers that brightly blaze, swirling clouds in violet haze,